Hello and welcome to Wine Dine Caroline's Happy Hour on Paris Underground Radio. I'm your host, Carolyn Connor. Today, we are going to talk to my friend and publicist, Amy Kaske Berger, who lives in Chicago. Amy, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
I would love to. Thanks so much for having me. I am a publicist based here in Chicago. I have a big agency background. I have lived in LA, New York, and now Chicago. I'm originally from the Midwest, but I love working with women-owned small businesses, which is how we found each other. I'm a wine lover too, so that also helps. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Well, you have been such a wonderful addition to my world. I found Amy because I actually, when I had first started my business doing wine tastings here in Leon for tourists, there was a really nice girl who was one of my guests, and she said, "Oh, you have to meet my friend Nikki. She works in food PR." And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I really, I don't need that yet, blah, blah, blah." And then once the pandemic hit and I was trying to promote an online business, then I was like, okay, PR could be really sweet right now. And so that's when I reached out to Nikki, who was not taking new clients, but was part of your, friend group and professional group of women that it seems like are really pretty awesome and supporting each other. And so she referred me to you, and it's been magic ever since.
Oh my gosh, that's just honestly the sweetest thing, and why I wake up and do this every day. So thank you for that warm instruction story. But that's exactly it. Nikki and I, it's as kind of an aside of how we came together at the beginning of the pandemic when the world shut down. And for anybody who works on their own, like you and I do, Caroline, it's so freaky it was so scary to be like, what is happening? What should we be doing? How are we going to communicate with each other? And I just hit up a couple of the awesome PR ladies who I know who are doing their own thing too. And was like, hey, you guys, can we just start a Slack channel, or what can we do to stay in touch with each other and just ask about what seems like the right thing to do? So that was really how I met Nikki, because one of the other girls in my group brought her in. And lo and behold, we've been this little four-woman PR crew that helps each other out in a million different ways, personally and professionally now. But I was so grateful for Nikki's introduction because, as you know now, Caroline, wine is something that I absolutely love. And I feel like I am your target customer in the sense that I'm a person who loves wine, but doesn't feel like I know a ton about it because I never have really gotten into wine education. But as you know, part of the way that we started working together was me being I need to take your course in order to do your PR well. So that was such a great introduction to getting to actually know your brand. That's something that's really important for me when I work with clients, is diving into their brand and getting to know as much as I possibly can about it and about what they know about their business. So taking your course right off the bat was the most fun experience to just get to know the way that you talk about wine and you educate people about wine. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. I mean, really, if you go to the press page, everyone will put the link in the show notes because it is really impressive. I've gotten so much press, and I've been on TV in the Chicago area twice now, and WGN. Was just quoted in Insider. I've been quoted in Wine Enthusiast now, and all of that is because of Amy. And PR is one of those things that is a tough thing to kind of quantify. And I think that's something you probably come up against these days, especially when everything is about metrics and measuring this and that. And it's just interesting to see how these sort of more traditional methods of marketing actually can really push your brand forward as well. And I think something I don't talk about as much as I probably should is, just the reality of being an online businesswoman, but a businesswoman and a female entrepreneur working, relatively by myself, although I am, increasingly building a team, which is pretty exciting. But it's something that I think these days, more and more people are trying to do their own thing because we just realize that working for other people sucks. Yeah.
Amen. Yeah, you just said so much right there, Carolyn. I think that just hits the nail on the head. I mean, I think when you work for yourself, it's like you're constantly mining for new ways to market your business. And I think, something that like I don't want you to sell yourself short on is if you do look at your press page, I want your listeners to understand that you did get a great amount of press on your own at the beginning of the pandemic, especially when you converted your business to an online business. I think simply because your knowledge and expertise really speaks for itself and you're doing something really unique in a wine education space. But I do think that you've always had just like a really keen, understanding and like affinity for PR, which I think is really important because what you said about metrics is so true. PR is this like discipline where it is hard to measure because it's not directly one-to-one like a coupon, where it's like if you know that someone uses a coupon or a coupon code that came directly from a certain source. PR is really driving awareness, and awareness sometimes can't be measured directly from where that person heard about your brand in the first place, because sometimes it takes 3 people to say, hey, yeah, I saw this brand on TV, and then that person tells their friend, and that person tells their friend, and that third person is the purchaser. So I just like really appreciate your like understanding of the time that PR and media relations takes to bring some placements to fruition. And I just think that like PR is such a great marketing discipline for you, on top of all of the things that you taught yourself over the last year and a half in order to have an online business, because you should probably have a separate podcast about how to start an online business because you have taught yourself so many different things that have made you successful.
Those podcasts already exist, but if anyone wants to have me on their podcast, get in touch. No, well, you know what? I wanted to have a podcast. I mean, I've been talking about a podcast for forever now. And what I kept saying was, I just don't really want to do the production side, advertising, dealing with all that stuff. So I was so lucky to get involved with Paris Underground Radio and our wonderful producer, Jennifer, who is basically made it super easy to say yes to. All I have to do is show up, talk, which is my forte, and then, basically do a shout out every time an episode drops on my email list, like do some pretty basic marketing on that. And she's doing all the hard work. And that just was like, oh my gosh, finally I get to do this. And I think it was also, I had a lot of kind of not haters, but like people just being like, well, what are you going to talk about? And I was like, yeah. And everyone assumed that it was going to be some hardcore wine podcast, but actually that's boring. I mean, it doesn't have to be. I think there are good wine podcasts, but I don't think they're actually that interesting to the average person. And so I thought it would be better to, I don't know. And I wanted to just like be myself, which is fucking weird, So right. I wanted to do a
and we talk about that all the time. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. We talk about that all the time. I think just about how, personal branding is so important. And when you are a service provider, people are buying you, they're buying your expertise and your knowledge too. Of course, that's, part of the reason what brought them to you, but they really want to connect with you in a really personal way. And I think that is why this podcast format is so fun for you, because you get to just be yourself and tell stories and have fun with people, which is, I think, what you love the most about your job.
It's so fun too, because actually I've realized, even just in the few episodes I've recorded so far, how every person that comes on is telling a different story, from my life too, and comes from a different time in my life. And it's like, how many crazy shit I've gotten up to. I don't know. It's funny. I do talk. If you're on my Instagram and my stories, I give my mom shit sometimes. She's like the only person who doesn't want to hear about my love life on the internet. She wants to hear about it. She just doesn't want everyone else to know. And she really, really, really hates that I fucking swear all the time. She really fucking hates that. But I have to say that she is someone who has a really keen eye for design. And so I think that my branding really reflects my apartment and the colors of my apartment. And I think my visual aesthetic and my ability to, put together decor. And I know that seems like it should be really separate from branding, but like that's my brand is like my, everything about me. And I think that I've been able to put together a really like kind of specific aesthetic because of, seeing her really enjoy playing with color and being a really talented decorator. And so it's, I definitely, thanks, Mom. Thanks for being very creative and showing me how to put that together. Cause I think that I probably would have been more difficult for me to nail my branding without having that influence.
That's so sweet. I feel like you have a very creative family, which is something that's really cool. And I think that that is, I would imagine, is partially where you got your entrepreneurial spirit, because I feel like that was something that, and I know your career path well, obviously not personally because I was there the whole time, but because I like write about it a lot. You've always been like a real like trailblazer in doing something a little bit different and doing it your way. And so I think that that personal style is super important. And I think, look at you, this expat living in this like really cool city and doing your own thing, but bringing your kind of like American / Brit / world traveler touch to it does help you kind of, stay like creative and inspired. And like you said, just kind of constantly be in this creative space in your beautiful old silk factory apartment, which I feel like should be another episode too.
I mean, the apartment is its own character in my life. I mean, it's like the Friends apartment or Central Perk. This apartment
Totally.
is just totally my backdrop. You got to come visit me. So we've actually never met in real life.
I'm planning on it.
We will meet in real life this year, I hope. I'm probably going to be in probably going to be in Chicago for Thanksgiving.
Yes. I would absolutely love that. And as I've told you, my husband and I planned on coming to Paris, at least Paris, for our 10-year anniversary during 2020, which obviously was not happening. And then we were replanning that trip for this year and planning to see you on the way. So one of these days,
12 is the new 10.
Perfect. I mean, it'll be great. But anyway, Thanksgiving, Chicago, it's on, girl.
Awesome. Yeah, I love Chicago. My dad's from Kokomo, Indiana, so all my family live in the Midwest and Chicago-ish area. And now, a word from our sponsors. Welcome back to Wine Dine Caroline's Happy Hour. On that note, why don't you tell me your stupid and or funny story?
I would love to. So I struggled with this a little bit, but I do have one that's like maybe stupid and funny.
That's perfect.
And Caroline, this happened long before we met, so I hope it's okay to share that.
That's great.
This part of my life. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to try to condense this because it's kind of took place over the course of a couple of days. So in my 20s, I lived in New York. I worked first I worked for Kate Spade, and then I worked in PR at a big PR agency. And sort of in between there, I had gotten out of a pretty toxic relationship that ended pretty abruptly. And the way to kind of like get out of that was to move within the course of one day to a friend's apartment and basically like bunk with a friend while I was kind of temporarily figuring out my life. So I had a couple of friends help me with this mission, if you will, where I needed to move my things from my very small apartment on the Lower East Side to my other friend's apartment in East Village, which isn't very far, but you can probably imagine, it's like hard to actually move all the things. So I had a friend who had also been moving at the same time, and she said, "You know what? We rented a rental truck. If you want to use the rental truck like the next day, you could do that." And I was like, "Yes, that would be amazing."
It's convenient, except there's nowhere to park in New York.
Well, that's part of the problem. That's actually the direction this story leads to.
I'm psychic.
You are. You totally know where this is going. So I was like, yeah, that'd be amazing. I mean, I had no money. I was like, everybody was like kind of like throwing me a bone, like trying to help in whatever ways they could. So I packed up all my stuff in this truck and had to, drive it. It was only like 14 or 15 blocks at the time. But like you just said with the parking, that was part of the problem. So I was so excited after I had driven the 15 blocks that I had gotten there, because before that I had never driven in New York City. You don't need to, unless you absolutely have to.
Why would you?
Or you're a driver. I mean, yeah, exactly. You don't do that. So I was so excited to pull up to my friend's apartment, and I don't know what Gods were smiling on me, but there was this big parking spot directly where I needed to be parking. Like it was so bizarre that it was actually there. So I, normally fashioned myself to be like a pretty good driver. I was pulling into the spot. So I had made it 99.9% of the drive. So I'm pulling into the parking spot just to park this big 14-foot moving truck. And you probably know, like, moving trucks have those, like, I don't know what it's called. It's like a thing on the back that, that you kind of like pull down that has like a ramp on it or something.
Shockingly, I also do not know what that is called.
We're not in the moving business. We don't know what these things are called. But as I was pulling in to the parking spot, that thing, whatever that's called, clipped the front bumper of the car that was parked behind me and ripped the entire bumper off of the parked car behind.
No.
So it happened, and like the truck that I was driving was like so loud that it was like I couldn't stop fast enough in order to like not rip the bumper off. So I realized that it happened because my friends were helping me park the car, and they were like, stop. So I stopped, but it was too late. So I just parked the truck. Even though the other person's bumper was laying on the ground, and I was like, I cannot believe this happened. I almost made it here.
Did you burst into tears? Because I would have burst.
Yeah, because I was like, I cannot believe this. My life is already in shambles, and now I've just ripped the bumper off of someone's car, a parked car nonetheless. So I, being the responsible Midwest kid I was, left a note saying, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to do this. I was parking this, giant rental truck. Please call me. Here's my number, whatever. So I am like waiting, the hours are passing. I'm like waiting to get a call from some New Yorker who's like so mad at me.
It's going to rip you a new one.
Yeah, exactly. Like run me out of town. And I'm like terrified. So like the next day, I get a phone call, and it's a number that I don't recognize, and I don't answer it, and they leave me a voicemail. So I'm like, oh God, I wonder if this is the person whose car I hit. So I'm with a couple of girlfriends, and I'm like, you guys, I'm going to play this message on speaker. I'm like scared to do it.
I know that feeling.
So everyone's standing around, and I play the message, and basically it's a guy who is like very calmly talking, and he's like, hi, Amy, this is Michael, whatever. I can't remember his last name at this point, but he's like, yeah, I got your note. That was actually my parents' car. They're visiting from Florida, which I can tell because it had a Florida page. They're visiting from Florida. So can you give me a call back and we can like go over the insurance information? And then he's like, yeah, again, this is Michael, whatever. I'm with the New York City bomb squad.
What?
I was like, excuse me, what? Like, so I'm like standing there like, oh my God. The car that I ripped the bumper off of is the parents of a gentleman who works for the New York City bomb squad. Like, what is that even? So I'm terrified because I'm like, oh my God.
Like a cop.
I just ripped the bumper off of a cop's car. What is going to happen here? The story is kind of anticlimactic from this point, but I stressed out until like the next day when I was able to meet the guy in person, who ended up being very nice and understanding of the situation. But he was also like, I need to basically duct tape my parents' bumper back on their car because they're leaving tomorrow for Florida. But turns out, yeah, like he gave me his card and it was legit because I was like, maybe he's lying. Maybe he's trying to scare me into like offering some money or like some kind of like compensation for like hitting his parents' car. But no, sure enough, he's with the bomb squad. And I think I still have his business card somewhere.
That's funny.
Dig hard enough, I can find it. So anyway, it happened. I'm pretty sure his parents probably made it back to Florida fine. Their car probably looked pretty messed up. The insurance, luckily, was able to cover the situation.
That surprises me.
Very apologetic. I know, I was very apologetic to my friends who loaned me the moving truck in the first place.
Indeed, yeah.
It was a bit of a debacle, but I'm really curious how you're going to address this funny/stupid story with a wine pairing, Caroline. Yeah, agreed. I don't know why he wasn't like, you're an idiot. You never should have been driving that truck.
He was probably so burned out on like having his parents visit. that he just
Mm.
didn't. He's just like,
And he worked for the bomb squad
yeah.
after all, so he
It's like,
probably
I
had a lot
have
of stuff in his
bigger
life.
fish to fry. I have bigger problems. Okay, so I think we need to go with something sparkling because of bombs
Sure.
and conciliatory. You know, like what would you give? What wine would you give to someone that you know are trying to sort of make right with, but also to soothe yourself? So I would say let's go with champagne. Champagne is flashy enough that you're like, oh God, here's this. I don't want, I'm sorry, here's some champagne. But also for yourself, you're like, oh my God, I need this right now. I deserve a little luxury. And it's fizzy, which means it's explosive. And champagne bottles do explode from time to time. So that was actually pretty easy.
Enjoyed by everyone
Enjoyed by
in the
everyone.
equation.
Yeah, I mean, champagne is actually not. I know this is like super sacrilegious, but it's not my favorite. I just like can't care that much about it. I had a very good champagne style Franciacorta from Italy in Rome this weekend. It was amazing. I was flirting with Dario, the waiter. He was very cute, but he had a chipped tooth.
Mm.
That was
What is
unacceptable.
your favorite sparkling?
I don't know. I don't care that much, honestly. I just think it's too expensive. So I'm into Franciacorta, which comes from Italy, from Lombardy, and it's same grapes as champagne. It's basically the Italian version of champagne. We often think Prosecco is like that. Prosecco is totally different. It's a completely different method. It has a very different flavor profile. So Franciacorta is awesome, and it was really nice to try that again. I think English bubbles are awesome. There's some very good sparkling wine coming out of the UK. And I mean, there's good bubbles all over the place. Really, Tasmania, South Africa, Graham Beck. That's one of my favorite producers, South African bubbles. California also has some really good ones. Rotorua Estate is really good. So I'm pretty open. I also like Pet Nats, the Pétillant Naturel. These are the kind of, I don't know, hipster natural wine ones where they're often a little bit sweet. I think when they're good, they're really good. They're like lightly fizzy and a little sweet, and that's quite nice. So yeah, I'm open to everything. You know that. I'm kind of, I just want things to be reasonable for the most part. Although I do think I need to have bigger goals when it comes to spending money on wine. I need to have like goals for a flash cellar, like a really, really nice cellar. Right now, my cellar is just full of Beaujolais, which is great, but I need to have some like expensive Bordeaux in there one day. One day. If enough of you listen to this
Absolutely.
podcast, I can invest in some expensive Bordeaux.
Come on, everyone. Get the girls
Share
some
it.
Bordeaux.
Share
Come
it with your
on.
friends. Yeah. So did you like that pairing? Are you going to go out and get some champagne just to soothe yourself of the memory?
Yes, actually. And, I think that what you said about sparkling is just a great reminder of all of the various options. And you also just reminded me of one of your kind of bigger pieces of advice when it comes to buying wine, to go to a local wine shop to see what they have, because I feel like I can go high and low end on wine. I love my Trader Joe's wine, which I've pretty much exhausted at this point. But I do feel like maybe I need to visit Melissa at Bottles Up, which is a Chicago women-owned wine shop. Our girl Melissa Caroline, who's helped us out
Amen. I can't wait to do an event with her.
more with our Chicago segments. Oh my gosh, she was so excited. But yeah, I think that what you just said about the different types of bubbles too, and just for somebody like me who like cannot even begin to kind of think of what all those options are, it's great to talk to your wine shop owner and learn more about those. So champagne or something else. I love the bubbles. I'm a
Champagne.
sparkling girl, but I like it all. It's fine.
Champagne is it's a good one. Champagne is good for gifting because people are like, ooh, and they know you spent some money. And I think that is really where it lies.
And I think the Florida parents would have been impressed by that too. So again, just a really impressive selection for everyone involved.
Well, Amy, thank you so much for coming and for telling us your admittedly stupid story. Yeah, and it was funny, but mostly stupid, which I really appreciate. I always have time for that. So that was wonderful.
That's why I love you. You always have time for a stupid story.
I really do. I'm into stupid shit. My humor is so dumb. It really is like, I'm like a 8-year-old boy. Just like, oh, poop. Oh, dear. Well, thank you so much, Amy. And everyone, you can follow Amy on Instagram, and we'll link to her website as well and her LinkedIn. If you're looking for representation, she can help you, and she can also lead you in the direction of other women. I'm sure if she isn't the right niche for you, that can help you as well, because we are all about women supporting women here.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I love spending time with you, and I'm so excited for this podcast adventure of yours. And yeah, I'd love to connect with any of your listeners who want to learn a little bit more about PR or want to be introduced to others in the industry. Like you said, I'm totally about women supporting women. That is a big mission of my business and my personal enjoyment of life. So thank you so much for having me.
Preach. Thank you, Amy. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Wine Dine Caroline's Happy Hour. Wine Dine Caroline's Happy Hour is produced by Paris Underground Radio. For more information about Happy Hour and shows like it, please go to parisundergroundradio.com. To hang out with me more, head to my Facebook group. It is called Good Wine, Good People, and you can find the link to that in the show notes. Cheers.